another little update. Today, as you can probably tell from the beginning of the video, I'm no longer in the UK. I'm in my favourite city of Amsterdam, and the reason why is because I've got a friend who's doing a master's out here in data science, and he and I have been talking a lot about what we're both doing. He's one of my best mates, so we've been talking a lot about it, and it was about as expensive as it was for me to come here. It was about €30 on the train from London to Amsterdam. So I'm here basically to just carry on working. That's what I've been doing so far, and then in the evenings, instead of just going to bed where I would normally go to bed in the UK, I'm going to go out and maybe have a few drinks, hang out with him, do some cultural stuff, but primarily I'm still going to be working. It was more literally just a way of kind of coming out here to hang out, to see Amsterdam again, because I came in the summer, absolutely loved it, and I wanted to come back again and spend some more time here when it's not so busy, not so touristy. So today is day 89, it is the 23rd of January, and all I've been doing for the last few days is just doing web apps. So after I passed the eJPT, I emailed the company. I haven't heard back from them yet. The guy who is running it is normally very, very good at responding to emails, but he hasn't been responding as of yet. So I think that maybe he's off, or I'm not sure what's happening, but I emailed them and basically said, I've passed my eJPT, I'm now kind of doing these last few stages to prepare for a technical assessment with them, and this is not the company. This is not the company which I did the multiple choice technical assessment for. That was one company. This one is the other company, and the technical assessment for the company this company is a web app only technical assessment, I think. So they've told me that is web app. And for the eJPT, I did a cross-site scripting attack and SQL injection, but they were very basic, and I want to basically give myself, I said, 2 weeks of just hammering web apps to prepare for it as best as possible. I'm using the Cybermentor web app, Cybermentor's practical ethical hacking course, and then focusing just on the web app section of that. I really want to do the whole thing. It's amazing so far, but unfortunately I don't have the time or the luxury to go right back to the beginning, but I will do that as soon as I have the time. So that's all I've been doing, but I wanted to just use this opportunity to do a review of the eJPT, because I've written some stuff down, so if this is a little bit more broken up than usual from me looking at my screen and preparing it a bit more, then I'm sorry, but that's just because I want to make sure I say everything and do it justice, because it was awesome, and I do have some feedback to give as well. So the eJPT in general, I absolutely loved it. I think it's a fantastic course. I think it was perfectly aimed at the level that I wanted to go for, the kind of technical skill with the prerequisites that I had. I wouldn't have wanted any less, and I don't think I would have wanted much more. It was the perfect level for me as a complete beginner. And I think overall, my general review of the eJPT was fantastic, and everything was overwhelmingly positive, bar 2 things, and that's it. Mostly bar 1 thing, which if you've already watched the videos, you probably know what that is, but if not, then I'm going to go through it again anyway. So I'm going to start with those 2 things, mostly that 1 thing, which really I didn't enjoy, because everything else, I'll talk about it anyway, but everything else I loved. There's nothing I would have changed about everything else. So don't take one bad to say, meaning that I didn't enjoy it. I did. I just think that there was 2 things which needed, in my opinion, needed to change. So number 1 was the programming section, and I've mentioned before how I thought the programming was a bit of a waste of the time. I think having now completed the course, I mentioned at the time I thought it was a waste of time and a waste of a third of the course, and now having completed the course and passed the exam, I'm even more convinced that it was a complete waste of time. If you don't already know, there are 3 sections to the eJPT. There's the prerequisites, programming, and the ethical hacking, or penetration testing, sorry. Prerequisites, very much necessary and excellent. Ethical hacking, penetration testing section, also perfect. Programming section in the middle was very, very ambitious. It tries, there's 4 sections in it. It does an introduction, then it does Python, C++, and Bash scripting, or scripting. And unfortunately, I just think it was just too ambitious. I mean, if they're going to teach you to program, they need to teach you to program properly, and you can't do that with a couple of slides, a couple of, not even no videos actually, a couple of slides, and then expect people to be creating these different tools, which it was just impossible. It didn't equate, like the course, what they taught you. And again, I personally, I'm not a very good kind of slide book reading learner. So for me, if I am going to focus much more on programming, but I'm never going to do it in that kind of style of just one slide of variables, next slide variables, next slide variables, next slide functions, next slide functions. Like, I just think it would never ever go into my brain that way. I have to be using it and I have to do all that. So I think they try to introduce the basics of programming, especially C++ and Python, as I mentioned, and I think it's just too surface level, it's too confusingly taught, it's very, very dry, as I said, and the labs do not match the course content in terms of ability, in terms of what you are making. So I think it was, in my opinion, it's a total waste of a third in this fantastic course, which is a real shame. I feel like if you're going to do it, then you have to really do it. You can't half-heartedly teach programming to people that have never programmed before, because that is essentially what that is your target market, is people who are doing that. I think you either have to do it properly and go all in, or you have to just say, maybe learn programming in your own time before this course, or maybe you are expected to have a certain level, or maybe after this course, because you don't need it for the exam. So it doesn't make any sense to me. The second thing, the only other thing which I wasn't very happy with, or I think could change, is the black box penetration tests. Now, I know that this is only for people with elite. There wasn't necessarily much wrong with them. I thought they were good, but I think they just need to be rebranded or named to something which is more representative of what they are, because they do not represent the exam, they do not represent the course content. They are very much advanced techniques, how to do things that you couldn't do before, etc., things like that. So trying these as like a practice for the exam basically just put me off, and it almost made me reschedule my exam for when I was planning on doing it for a much later time, and it just disheartened me massively. I just thought I'd messed the course up somehow, or I wasn't, because I got 0 out of I think there was 4 in, no, there weren't 4 in each, maybe there were 4 in each. I got 0 out of many machines, and I was attempting them with absolutely none of the skills required to pass them. So I think maybe just a rebranding of what they are would have helped me go into that and not be so disheartened when I realised that I was not getting any of them. So effectively they are training, they're not an exam or a mock. So those are the things that I thought were not so good, and then obviously the things which I thought were good were the slides. I thought they were good. They were, normally I don't really like learning from slides, but with this I was fine, so that's a tribute to itself. They're relatively engaging and interactive and exciting. The videos went nicely along with the slides. They were very well made, very professional, and they kind of fit perfectly, very informative, and they fit perfectly off of the back of the slides. And then off the back of the slides and the videos, the labs also fit perfectly, I think. They build seamlessly off of the video content very, very well. I think for me that was the best bit of the course. That was the bit that was worth the money just for the labs. And for me also that was the perfect way to learn. Very well aimed at as well in terms of the level. You start very, very low, but then from then on you build them constantly. And another thing which I thought was excellent was the fact that after the very first day of the course, you are in the labs and you're learning, which was amazing. Coming off the back of the A+, where I spent 30-40 days just hammering, revision with no practical, opportunities really. It was amazing. I loved it. You can also complete them as many times as you want, which is fantastic. So it gives you a chance, for me at least, it gave me a chance to keep going back over and over and over. There is plenty of time with the courses. I used 25 hours in total to do the labs twice and the black box penetration tests, and to be honest, I'd say the black box penetration tests were probably almost half of that time, no, maybe not half of that time, but maybe about 10 hours. So that kind of, there is loads and loads of time in the course. I wouldn't say for the time alone that you need to get the elite, but I'll talk a little bit about, that's my next thing I want to talk about, is full or elite, which one, why. So I went for elite because I didn't really have a choice. It was on offer, so I wanted to get it before it went up in price, but most importantly was I wasn't going to be doing the exam for a long time. When I bought it, it was at least 2 or 3 months before I was planning on doing the exam. I just bought it because it was on offer. I didn't know when it was going to be on offer again. It was $499, so I don't remember exactly what the exchange rate back then was, but it was about 450 or a bit less pounds. Which for me, for the labs for 60 hours, plus the black box penetration test, plus an infinity voucher, so that was what was the biggest change for me. That was the only reason why I had to go elite, was because I didn't know when I was going to be doing the exam. It was probably going to be a long time away. So the elite passes don't expire, and the fact that you can do 3 free retakes, I didn't need them in the end, but it was a lot of peace of mind that I really enjoyed. 60 hours is too much. Nobody, I don't think, would use 60 hours, but then maybe if I'd failed the exam, then I would have done some more time, in which case that would have been probably about the right. For me, another reason why I thought elite was good was having the 60 hours meant that I could just rack up as many hours as possible in Kali Linux, using commands, going through the tools, etc., and applying what I had learned. And that was what this course was for me. This course wasn't an attempt to get a certification which was going to get me a job. I think it might end up being that way, but I also think that it was more for the content and to learn than it was anything else. So for that reason, the 60 hours was perfect. It's not like the OSCP and that standard. It wasn't like trying to get through HR or my ticket into a company. I just needed to learn it, and this was the most effective way that I could see learning how to be a pen tester. So yeah, that is essentially the reasons why I went for full versus elite. It depends completely on the situation. And the last thing I want to talk about is the exam. So I thought the exam was excellent, really well targeted, great level. It was challenging. It made you think outside the box, but it wasn't using techniques that they hadn't taught you at the end of the day, which is good. You may have to go a little bit further than what they show you in the videos, but the techniques are the same. So I'm not going to cover in too much detail here because I covered it in an entire video. So if you want to check out my whole video where I vlogged during the exam, getting updates and etc., then I'll put that in the description. But I just wanted to say, after a few more days, that I think it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the course prepares you perfectly. The black boxes you do not need to be able to pass the exam. The course and the labs are enough, and I can't talk too much about what's in the exam, obviously. So one thing I would say in terms of preparation or tips for other people, I'd make sure you're comfortable with all things networking. That for me, in terms of switching between networks, adding networks, routing commands, etc., that was what really let me down. It cost me a lot of time and effort and emotion. And yeah, that's it really. If you want to check out my exam vlog where I talked a lot more about the exam, then please do that. But otherwise, I thought that it was fantastic. I could not be happier. I mean, I made a LinkedIn post saying I just couldn't be more positive about the whole experience, bar the program. It just doesn't make sense for me. And also I've got another video where I talk a lot more about the programming section and the problems I have with it. So I talk a lot more in depth about it there. So that's probably worth checking out as well. If you disagree with me or whatever, then I explain a lot more there. Or if you agree with me, then you can go and have a look at that anyway. So I think that's pretty much it for now. I'm probably going to maybe put some, I don't know, maybe I'll put some more footage from being in and around Amsterdam. But yeah, that's it for now. That's my update. I will give you more of an update as I'm going forward with these companies as I get responses. But yeah, that's it for now. I'll see you in the next one.